We are away. Are we away? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Friday Frothy. Glenn, how are you, mate?
Very good, mate. It's been, again, another massive week with a lot going on, and got an exciting thing happening tonight, mate.
We do, mate. Alex Peroni last week, and tonight in the Frothy Bar live, we've got former Melbourne player Colin Garland.
Legend, yep, Colin
Guys,
Garland.
grab yourself a froth, sit back. We'll be back in 2 seconds with Colin Garland. This is the Friday Frothy. Well, good evening, guys, and welcome back. Glennie, as I said last week, we're at the Alex Peroni fundraiser, mate.
Fantastic night. We had over 300 people in the house down at Rest Point, and he looks good, doesn't he?
He does.
The boy, I think
He
he's
does.
back. He's again, as we commented the other week. I think another 2 to 3 weeks he's out of the brace.
Yes.
And
He's ready to race.
ready to go, mate. He's ready to get back in the car, and I just thought it was a fantastic night. What did you think?
Mate, unbelievable. Just to let people know it, they actually raised, and I don't know if you know this, they raised $200,000 on the night.
Just like that.
200
It
grand.
was incredible. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to.
Blunston's done well that night.
I believe Blunston paid $28,000 for his helmet that he wore in the accident, and they gave the helmet back to him.
Really?
Yeah.
But
So they gave it back to him. So that's incredible stuff.
The big thing was with it is that apart from all the guests and everything else, the night went smoothly. And as I said, we're all just chipping in for the one cause to get that kid back in the car, mate.
He needs to be there.
And yeah.
Now, guys, if you're new to the show, we're here every Friday night. We're normally live, and sometimes we do interviews with certain people, which we do tonight with Colin Garland, former Melbourne Demons player.
Very fortunate.
Very excited about next week, Glenn. Next Friday night, guys, stay tuned. We have the cricketing legend Mervyn Hughes coming on the Friday Frothy.
I might have to grow me Moe back.
Well, you
mate,
might
and
both
see
have
if
to.
I can compete.
Hey?
I reckon I'll be.
Might squeeze it in. I think it'd be hard.
I reckon I'll be struggling against that.
So Merv Hughes next week. Well, let's not get in front of ourselves because we've got a great guest on tonight.
We have.
And,
We're lucky.
just
Tasmanian born and bred, mate.
you like that, wouldn't you?
Well, Colin's from there. I'm from there.
I know.
You're from Brisbane.
I know. You like your Tassie. You like your Tassie sports.
Of course
people.
I do.
So, quickly before we do start, Corey's Garden Landscape, our sponsor, a major sponsor of the
Corey,
show.
Yes, he's the man. He's just absolutely flying.
Anything in Hobart, guys, if you want decks, pergolas, any landscape.
Paving. He mentioned another thing he does. Again,
He does it all.
I forgot he did that.
Does it all. So
We'll have a break in between.
we'll have a break on between. Anyway, let's get the show on the road, guys. If you're out there, you've got questions, if you're watching, if you've got anything you want to ask Colin, send it through, and we'll ask him as we go. So let's get it going, mate. Colin Garland, how are you, mate?
Come here, mate.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for coming in.
Bit cramped in the bar, mate.
Yes.
But,
Yes, we're not.
At 191 centimetres, you can only be 5 foot when you come into this bar. But
Well, look, invite Max Gorn on the show.
How tall would he be?
He's 209, so
He's 209. And what are you? 190.
on 192-ish. So
Yeah.
he's got 17 centimetres on there.
He's a big boy.
That's about 6'7", 6'8".
He's a big
I
boy.
think.
Now, we want to start off talking a bit about yourself and where you've come from and
Absolutely.
stuff. But you've just said Max Gorn. I've got to ask you, what sort of character is he? A cool cat or?
Look, Max is sort of the salt of the earth type of guy. So he's actually getting married in a month and a half's time. So going over that, so which should be reasonably big night. So he had a Bucks weekend in New Zealand recently because he's from there. So that was a big weekend as well.
He's
I
from
didn't
New
know
Zealand. I didn't know that.
He was born in New Zealand but spent sort of the first month of his
okay.
life, and then his parents moved over. So both his parents are Kiwis. But
There you go.
he's a terrific person. He's got one of the biggest hearts you ever meet. Comes from a low socioeconomic background, wasn't given anything, had gone through a lot of injuries. So people don't realise that he was at Melbourne for 4 years before he played.
One thing I do know, mate, I know that he's already been back training. He was one of the first back on the training track. So
Mate, yeah,
he's got everything out of himself, hasn't he?
people
to get
wouldn't
where he is.
understand his diet at the moment is I wouldn't be able to do it. It's freakish.
No.
So
No.
no, he deserves everything he's got. He's a great person. So
And guess
Yeah,
what?
fantastic.
He drives a Kingswood wagon.
Does he really?
Oh, really?
Is that right?
And Colin, he likes his coffee, doesn't he?
he loves his coffee.
coffees.
He's built a
Yeah.
few of these bar type things as well. He was into that
Yes.
for a bit. He's sort of one of those Eddie Everywhere type people. Always into everything. So
Well, mate, let's get on a little bit about yourself. So, you, as Glennie said,
Well,
you're born in Tasmania. Where did it all start?
Wynyard, mate, was it?
yeah,
Wynyard?
Wynyard. Yeah, so
There you go. A little bit of homework.
yeah, the northwest coast. So was up there till grade 6. So that's sort of where I sort of learned to love footy. I was the footy club pest. So from as early as I can remember, I was travelling on the bus. I'd just get onto the bus with the senior guys and go to Scottsdale or go to Latrobe and just spend all day there, and then come back late at night and just walk 2 doors down to mum's house. So
What was the influence? So was it through parents, or was it just mates, or just being at school? Because back in the day, everything was football, cricket, as I remember it.
and that's what it was.
Basketball,
like.
probably?
Yeah, it was. It's just country town.
Exactly.
Had 2 stepbrothers and 2 sort of full brothers,
Yes.
so we were always outside and obviously living close to the footy ground. And,
Yep.
I've just always loved sport, as you said, footy, cricket.
Yeah, footy,
and-
cricket, yeah.
and that.
So you were gifted in, not gifted, I'm putting you on player here, but were you gifted in all sports? So you were good at basketball, good at football, good at...
Yeah, without bragging.
It's
I
hard to say, I know,
it
but-
was always footy, and then straight into cricket, and then anything I could sort of turn my hand to. So, just loved it. Like it was just one of those things that I was just very fortunate I had brothers to play against. And,
Well, I could remember, and this is not about me, of course, but I could remember when I was playing against the North in basketball, football, very strong up there, mate. It wasn't from Penguin, Wynyard, it used to be Ulverston back in the day, too, right through the northwest. It's super strong. The basketball was
and the
unbelievably
strong.
strong.
Yeah, the Northwest Thunder,
Yeah.
and they used to play home games at Wynyard. And
That's right.
I had 9 uncles up there as well who had offset, so it was just in our blood. And and it has changed a lot. Like going back to the northwest coast, it's maybe lost a little bit of that.
It's a little bit sad.
Yeah.
I was just going to say while we're talking quickly local, because I think it is important, even though you've got to know where you come from. But like even footy today, you look at it now and you think, well, it's not the players' fault. The players are doing the best they can, but the overall, I did see one of your articles, but you'd only be saying what I would, and I can say. But it's a shame, mate. You go to the grounds now, and there's back in the day when I was playing, but it was full. You had right from the under 19s or under 17s up. It was strong, and you had your grandparents and that going. But now it's just unfortunately it's not there.
Is this the same in Victoria though?
It is.
Is it?
It
It
is.
is.
I played a game up there for a mate's team
Yep.
in Terang, and country football in
Terang,
Victoria
yeah.
is very similar. I think people are very time poor.
Yeah.
A lot of guys that I know that are tradies, might have to work that extra
That's
Saturday
right.
to
Yep.
pay the mortgage or to get ahead. The fact is, the guys get paid the same amount at North Hobart or less than they did in the early 90s.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
And look how much
I know it's come a long
it's
way.
gone up. And
Wow.
that's just the fact with the crowds and the fact that there's not as much money in the game.
No,
And people have different
different interests. There's
I work
surfing,
at-
is there?
Yeah, I
There's
work at
everything.
a school, and
Yeah.
there's not many kids on the overs playing sport.
No.
They're all
Well,
on their
it
phones
used to
on
be.
Snapchat.
That's
I
a problem.
think when we
That's a
mentioned about when you said at school, because it was in the schools, but now it's not in the schools. I mean, that's the whole thing, yeah.
Now, so I'm just going to pump your tyres up a little bit here, just,
No, we're good
and
at that.
lead you into a question,
Don't pump my
guys.
tyres
If you're watching the show and you're not aware of what Colin Garland has done in his career, he was picked up in the 2006 draft at number 46. You've played 141 games between 2007 and 2017, so that's quite a long career in football. And you were the 2008 AFL Rising Star. So fantastic work.
And part of the leadership group.
Yes.
Back with young Trengrove, and then
So what
when he first got the job as I think he was 21, eh? 21, 22,
20.
20.
Cool.
There was a 16-year-old bowler today for Pakistan.
Yes.
It just amazes me. How could you be that young?
Oh, was that 16,
There you
did
go.
you say?
Yeah,
but that's got
16.
nothing
Wow.
to
16.
nothing to do with football. But at 20 years old,
That's
and
big,
this
isn't
guy
it?
was there right with him too. So.
So what I was going to ask, mate, 2006 when you drafted, were any other clubs looking at you, or it was just Melbourne?
It all happened really fast for me. I went from not playing at all in the pre-season or the year before to being drafted just like a flash, really. So,
Yep.
Not to go into too much of a long story, North Hobart had their last pre-season game. They needed numbers for the reserves. They called me up on the day and said, "Can you fill in for the reserves?" I said, "Yeah, no worries." Went, played a couple of quarters in the reserves. They pulled me off. They said, "I will play in the seniors the game after." I played a couple of quarters, and they said, "Well, if you turn up to train, and we'll play you round 1 the next week."
Who was your coach, mate? Do you think?
Brent Williams was my coach, who'd just taken over from Brendan Bolton. So, and then played 4 or 5 games to North Hobart, then played a couple of state games, then got injured, and then next thing I knew, I was getting picked up. So I was pretty lucky. No one really knew much about me, so I got interviewed by a lot of clubs. So I was really unsure if I'd go or where I'd go. And sort of, I didn't actually get interviewed by Melbourne, but just by chance, there was nowhere to sit at draft camp, so I just asked this bloke if I could sit next to him and struck up a conversation, and he ended up being the Melbourne recruiter. And
Oh, really?
they
Hang
picked me up.
Wow.
They picked me up without even interviewing me.
Unbelievable.
Is that right?
That's just incredible.
That's how things work.
You know, I mean, as I said, reserves from that to that. I mean, I played with guys there like Darren Perry before I went to Clarence, but going way back that had played a lot of footy.
Yeah,
fellas like that, mate,
really
just
quick for
bang.
me, and,
There you
I feel
go.
I was pretty lucky because I just went from just playing exactly the same way as I did with my mates at lunchtime,
Yeah.
and I was just doing that against men. But I never really had the anxiety and maybe the pressure that some of the other boys were going through at the time.
Is it something that you always knew that you would make it?
I never really concentrated on make it, but I always believed in myself and my ability. Obviously, that can waver when you're playing against really good players at the top level, but for me, footy was just an outlet to express myself. I was a very introverted type of kid, very quiet.
Yep.
Didn't really socialise that much, and footy was probably just as an artist might express themselves with art, or someone who's a good writer, or whatever it is. Footy was just my thing.
So did you when you came down from Wynyard? So what age was you when you actually got to North?
So I didn't
Did
start.
you go to what school? Did you go to?
I went to Moona Primary, then Newtown High. I
So
didn't start at
it's
North though.
my old school,
that.
I think everyone in Tasmania goes to Newtown High.
Yeah,
Great school, wasn't it? Not? Well, it was a bit different when I was there. There was about 1,300 blokes there when I went there.
yeah.
And who
Yeah.
did you follow back then when you were?
I was a
when you were
massive
kid?
Geelong supporter.
You were Geelong?
Massive because of Gary Ablett Senior.
Yep.
And yeah, so.
What about now?
Oh well, now I like you go for obviously Melbourne, but I follow probably the guys I know.
Yeah.
So I lived a lot of my years. I lived with Lyndon Dunn and Jeremy Howe, who are both
Okay.
at Collingwood.
He's done well, hasn't he? Too,
Yeah,
Jeremy
and you have
Howe.
mates at other teams, so
Yeah.
it's good just to see people that you're good mates with doing well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just rapt to see all these guys and that. And not only do they go over, but Jeremy Howe and these fellas played locally and that. And he went a little bit longer than you, didn't he? And
Yeah.
but you know, he went through the Dodgers and then went up to Hobart and then got a. You know, I think they seen him stand on a couple of heads.
Yeah, no, he's done extremely well.
And same with Russell Robinson.
Yeah.
Another one.
Yeah,
You know? I mean,
big
he
Russ.
you
Played
know
for
he
Footy
was
Show,
he was
yeah.
seen pretty much on the footy show. It's folklore now, but
Yeah.
that's the breaks.
Mm.
Let's go to that. You got to have talent too. You can't just you've got to make it.
My
And
word.
these guys to play one game is fantastic. I don't care. Not alone 140.
141. Yeah. So growing up,
So,
you had a favourite player. Oh, you just said that, didn't you? It was Gary Ablett Senior.
Gary Ablett Senior was just my first intro to footy. I guess back then you didn't have many games a week that you could watch.
Yeah.
And he was just the person that would sort of amaze me with the things he could do.
yeah, just I was going
Ken
to. I
Peace.
wasn't going to say it, but just remember Hawthorn let him go.
Oh, here we go.
Oh,
There we go.
it's
Anyway,
always-
it's always
I told
been-
you I wasn't going
it's
to
always
mention it,
been-
but
it's funny.
there you go.
We've interviewed Ken Peace, who I spoke to before,
Yeah.
and he actually said, because we asked him the question, who do you think's a better player, Gary Ablett Senior or
Yes.
Junior? And he said, I think Gary Ablett Junior's probably got more skills, but Gary Ablett Senior is the guy that I would spend money to go and see.
Yeah.
He's the one one that I want.
He was
to
a
go
freak.
and watch. Yeah,
Absolute freak.
And that's becoming rarer and rarer, isn't it? The guys
It is.
at AFL level, the guys that genuinely wow you.
Yeah.
Well, the game's changed, and that's something that we want to ask you about, because if we jump straight over to AFL, I mean, the game's got quicker. Is it got quicker each year when you started, Colin, from the time you got to Melbourne, you got your first senior game to now?
Yeah, it's got
where's it
quicker
going?
because it more the two ways.
Two-way
with
running
behind the
bit?
goals, vision. I mean, you got 5 or 6 cameras watching
Yep.
you every game. It's into the point now where almost every player has an isolated camera on them at all times.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just that fact alone will make people run harder and quicker. But unfortunately, to the game's detriment, you don't want to get in trouble.
No.
Letting the team down on defence, and that can sometimes obviously not give you the energy on offence. But from where I started to when I finished, I couldn't even describe you how quickly and far the game came. So when I started, we didn't even have a weights gym, and when I left,
Really?
we're doing that 4 times a week.
Yep.
It was just insane, and the amount of running you're doing 50 k's a week on track in pre-season, just with your footy and running, let alone your boxing and swimming and that running's different to a runner that goes and runs 10k a night too. Like you got to pick yourself off the ground after getting tackled. You got to jump, you got to kick, you got to do all this stuff, and training's exactly the same. You got all the cameras and.
Is there really cameras on there as well?
At training, they're scrutinised 24/7, mate.
One of the things I have got in here that I wanted to ask that most people wouldn't know, and I certainly don't know. As an AFL football player, are you doing like a 38-hour week? How many days a week do you train?
How many days you get off you?
I reckon that would probably be the most amazing thing, that someone, if they spent a week as an AFL player, you basically do a 7:30 to 5 day
job.
And that might include different things and a bit of physio or even a massage, which isn't really work, but you're in traffic like everyone else, and then you drive home in traffic. So it's 7:30 to 5. The only difference is being a footballer, and where this is the toughest bit of the job is when you go home, you're still a footballer. So then you got to eat healthy. You got to be thinking about what are we doing tomorrow in terms of, geez, am I running heaps or am I doing a resting session? I better get to bed early and do you want to come out for these birthday drinks? Oh, sorry, can't. Got to stay home.
Yeah.
So
when you first jumped over there, who did you room with? Was it a family or did you?
Yeah, initially I stayed with a couple of players for a week, and then I boarded with a great family. I was really lucky to live with them for a couple of years in Brighton, and they owned a couple of car dealerships and definitely weren't short of any money.
Any money? Yeah.
So it was really well looked after, and they were great. So when I went over, I didn't have my license or anything, and they helped me get that. And so I spent a couple of years with them, and the AFL was great in terms of transitioning and making things easy for you.
So you didn't feel like, like you hear of. I can remember going back in the day, you'd get a few guys that go over to Melbourne and that, and the tall, being in Melbourne, and it's a big city, and you feel like you're, like I'm in a big fishbowl. Some did come back. I'm going back yesteryear, but I think the way it seems to me that the way that they embrace you and educate you now and make you feel part of it, it must make it easy.
Yeah.
Especially with the Indigenous guys too.
And that's it. And I compare the Tassie pool to home is very similar to the Indigenous pool to home.
That's what I'm thinking.
Look, I won't lie, the first week I was ringing mum and my girlfriend every night in tears, just wanting to come home. Because it is tough. Like I went from the Saturday not knowing I was going to get drafted to the Tuesday living with different people. Never cooked for myself, never cleaned. Didn't have a bank card, didn't have the license, and then you're in full time work. It's still the travel sickness and stuff is tough, but the footy clubs are. They're really well conditioned now to helping you as best as they can. And sometimes it is still too hard for a few guys in terms of home sickness. But I was really lucky. They invested a lot in me in terms of time, and it sort of paid off.
How old were you, Colin? Sorry, when you...
I was 17 turning 18, so...
he's a lad.
So, you're
never had
pretty
any chance,
young. You're very young.
You give up your life though, pretty much. much.
Well, exactly. Your whole life changes in an instant.
Saturday to Tuesday.
Yeah, well, for my mum, for instance, she thought footy season started in April, so this was November, and she goes, "All right, you got a couple of months in to get ready," and I was like, "Oh, I'm off Monday."
Yeah. I was saying to Angie over here before that I actually did a job for your mum. You were only just.
She's
She's watching. Hello, Mum.
How are you, Shirley? I probably look a little bit older than when I was there
You probably do, Glenn.
fixing glass or fixing work around your house back in those days.
I probably broke the window.
Yeah, playing cricket.
I think you might have, Colin, but you'd left, so I still had to fix the window, mate.
As pre-season training, is it getting earlier? It's starting earlier.
Oh, well, it's actually getting later. So there was a couple of years when I was there. We started a week and a half after the grand final.
Wow.
With the new CBAs and stuff now, it's regulated. You get 10 weeks off, sometimes 12. So it is pushing back later, and I would not be surprised if it keeps getting pushed back a lot because obviously some of the things I've mentioned is why people are starting to have mental health problems at the moment.
It's not only in footy, is it? It's a massive. This is what we talk about in our show each week. We ackalack around, mate. We have a few beers, which we've done, but our show has got a serious side to it, and that's one of the massive. Not just in footy, but it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And footballers are scrutinised, as you said, 24/7.
Yeah.
They can't do anything, can't go anywhere. Got to eat this, got to do that. And unfortunately, they've got the paparazzi on most corners.
It's pretty much like myself, Colin.
Yeah.
With social media, everyone's got a phone.
Well, it is. It must be hard, and I don't think the average Joe would probably realise that.
No, it'd be horrible. Just what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you go from when I first started, I think we had 3 assistant coaches. When I left, I think we had mid-20s people.
It's incredible.
So, and all of those people want to, in a good way, justify their positions and stuff. And so you are, you're very dragged one way, dragged the other. And as I said, I'm a big advocate that because after 2 weeks, when you're away, you've got a training program to do on your own anyway. You're doing runs, you're keeping fit. And what happens is, you spend that life in a bubble. Some guys don't, they're not smart like some people. They don't go and get an education. They don't get some work experience or an apprenticeship behind them. And if the average career is only 3.5 years, they sort of get spat out and a little bit lost.
So the AFL, I'm going a little bit off track here, but do the AFL try and guide players now into that sort of...
Yeah, definitely. It's almost mandatory now. You have to be doing something rather than playing on the PlayStation.
Yes.
You have to be either doing some work experience, sort of half day a week or a day a week, or education in some way. And there are sports ready and stuff will come into the club, and if a guy wants to get his PT certificate or something, they'll help with that. So the AFL's getting really good at it.
The other thing outside all that is a lot of people. You hear a lot of negatives about rugby league and rugby union footballers, but it's the work these guys, whether you're made to do it or whether you just do it. I know going to hospitals, going seeing kids, going out to the schools, doing your, all these other things. When you said about your time, that's all part of it, isn't it?
And then sometimes, unfortunately, that stuff that you like doing like that sometimes has to get pushed aside. But it's easy to sell a paper about a bad story. But
exactly.
I could sit here just because I've been privileged. I could say 100 things that I've seen players or the club do for people and not gone and seek recognition from.
They don't get it. This is what I mean. And there's a lot of negatives, and that's what I'm saying, mate. It's just everything's so politically correct these
that's
days.
the problem
But
with everything. It's
there we go.
Sport, it's everything.
You started with Spud Frawley.
Yeah.
One of my great player. Great player at Melbourne. I don't know how I get back there, but great player at Melbourne. Well, and what sort of guy was he?
James he's from Ballarat. So he's from
good country boy.
Spud farmers, So as you can imagine, basically you had a potato for a brain, but was he's just a great fella. It's sort of weird when you sort of grow up with someone in terms of when you get. AFL's different because you get shifted away from your families, and he was country Victoria, so as well. You basically just spend every minute with them for 4 or 5 years.
That's what I was going to say. You were half back.
Yeah,
he was full back. Fluctuate between that.
So you spend all the time with him, and then plus me and him were playing similar positions, so you spend even more time together. So you just develop you develop really it's almost stronger than a brotherhood with some of these guys. 'Cause you literally with them as they grow up from 17. You're almost with people every day until you're 30. Like Nathan Jones, say for instance, I would have
He's
spent
been there a long time.
you know for 11 years. I might have seen him more days than his wife did, or definitely more than anyone else.
Yeah,
Maybe his wife
yeah.
would have been second to me in terms of because you're training so much every day, or you go away on camps and spend the whole week together.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think that's why some of these, I'm not saying it yourself, but some of the stars of football, whether they're stars or not, just a football that's played at that top level, any level, there's cricket, the whole lot, that they struggle away from the limelight or the getting back to reality sort of thing once they do retire? Is that a what do you reckon about that?
Yeah, I mean, because being a professional athlete, you've got to be selfish. You've got, as I said before, you've got to say no to birthdays. You're unavailable for weddings. I missed on heaps and that stuff, and what that can do, as much as people understand, that can drive you get distance between people.
Exactly,
and I went through long periods of time where I haven't had a falling out with a friend, but you might not speak to him for 2 or 3 years.
For a long time, no.
So when you do exit the game, suddenly, geez, I'm not seeing James Frawley every day.
No.
So you lose that little bit, but you haven't got those strong relationships like maybe the outside world people develop. So
Do you still have a good relationship with him now? Now, when he left Melbourne,
I still have a good relationship with him. As I said, he's now dad, so it's a bit. Yeah, I'm not sure if he changed a nappy or not, but no. So
he must be all right. He's got
everything.
a pub. Not a pub. It's a restaurant. Isn't it?
yeah, he's got a
He's
pub
done well with
Isaac Smith.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it looks pretty fancy.
Isaac.
Well, another good one.
Oh, jeez. Hawthorne.
So
Hawthorne. Is that a Hawthorne
hardest.
reference
No,
again?
that's right. We'll just move on.
Oh.
Don't have to worry about that. Hardest opponents, mate. Who did we? You would have played on. What I've watched you play a lot. So you played on tools.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a lot of bigger goal kickers that would have come through. I was going to mention Gusson, but I could have mentioned him, but I just anyone like that. I'm trying to think of guys his size, but then you get an Eddie Betts.
Yeah.
Okay, or you get a one of the Surioli or something like that. But I don't know. He was from North.
So who'd
Well, the question is that you played on.
Your toughest opponents.
Colin could do both. He could play on tools and smalls. As a backman, that was a big kudos to you. What did you find hard? Was it mainly the smaller, or they're all hard, or was there certain players there that stood out and you thought, geez, I hope I don't have to play on that guy again? Or
there's a few sleepless nights there, but I think when someone's highly talented, they're very unpredictable because they can do anything. So those guys with the high amount of talent that might not be the hardest workers. Like, say, Nick, you play Nick Rewalt, you knew you were gonna run 15, 16k, and you're gonna have to work hard.
Yep.
But that's easier to plan for than, say, a Franklin or a Rioli, for instance, or a Betts, where you could play really well and do everything right for 85% of the game, but 15% of the games they're going to pull something out and they could kick 2 or 3 goals. So, those guys, I think, like Rioli and Franklin, when they were really up and going, especially when they were together, they had a really good connection. Were incredibly tough to play on just because they were just their movement and their unpredictability with that was.
It's a bit of magic, isn't it?
You
can't be taught that, can you?
No, you can't be. And
And that's why Carlton took him back.
Well, absolutely, and you know that he still will. He still will be able to go. I mean, he's still got it. So,
you've predominantly been a defender most of your career?
Yeah, I have a forward every now and then. So I got drafted playing as a forward down here, but I hadn't played that much footy, and it just happened when I played VFL there for Sandringham. They had won 3 premierships in a row. They were our reserves at the time, and they had an abundance of forwards. So I was either play in the VFL reserves or play back, and I played back, and probably the worst mistake I ever made because it meant I had to play a career as a backman. But
so you prefer
did you like that though, the running forward, watching the game in front of you, or
no? I was a bit of a student of the game, so I liked the game in front of me from behind, and I guess as a backman, it sort of just played to my strengths. I think my strengths was my closing speed, my agility, and probably my tackling. They were my strengths, and my marking every now and then. But sort of played to my strengths, and I was happy to play where I was needed.
Did the game changed a fair bit, didn't it? With I know we're not going to mention it, the umpiring, but We will mention it.
Well, you can't get in trouble now, can you?
Can't get in trouble now, but no, I mean it has changed. I mean it used to be only one, and then it was two, and then it was three, and I mean when you're watching it, it is frustrating.
Yeah.
I don't know what it'd be like being a player playing there now, because the tiggy touch would, as a defender, you'd be able to put your Jeff, I'm using you as a cushion, but you'd be able to put your elbow across and punch or come in behind. It just seemed very hard for the defenders. They swapped. One time it was hard for the forwards, then it was hard for the defenders. How do you see that? Was it? I mean, you're talking guys that are nearly 100 kilos, some of them 90 kilos, quick, and you're going to stop them.
Yeah.
So if you can't lay a glove on them, I'd find that frustrating.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you did that.
And I mean, they tried to change it a little bit back, but it does get hard, and you have got to adjust. And I think a lot of it was they took that strength element out of the game. You give a lot of free kicks now. You see, and it might just be two guys are in a contest and one's outbodied the other, and you see those howlers, and the holding the ball rule is just a mess. But I have a couple of mates who I grew up with that actually umpire AFL.
Yes.
And
what do they think?
I just think it's an impossible game to umpire because of the constant rules.
But it's so quick too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all right for us to sit back. It's like watching cricket. I mean, you sit back and you go, oh, there's a replay, and you're watching it. But they haven't got that. They've got split seconds.
That's right.
You guys are that quick with the ball.
And we're so quick to judge the umpires that they've done the wrong
I
thing.
know.
And then the following year, the AFL changed the rule, tweak the rule, and then they'll change it again, and they might change it. And what it becomes is confusing for the umpires as well.
Oh, look, it would be hard for them, and I'm saying the umpires. I really mean it's probably the game changes.
Yeah.
They're the ones that I think are at fault sometimes, because it started with the interchange.
Yeah.
How many rotations you had.
It's been crazy for the last.
It's going through the roof. I
years.
mean, there's guys, as you said, you had I know that was in a VFL game in the end when you were coming back through, but like the pressure on your body, I can see. I mean, I don't know what you reckon, but the amount of training and that you've got to do and everything else, the pressure on your body, something's got to give.
That's why we're getting more
And
injuries.
I still think, it's only my opinion, but I still think that's why in yesteryear they didn't do the running that you guys do.
Yeah.
They didn't have all the performance guys with the and the
It's different athletes now.
you are
Really.
you are. I mean, if you had a bit of size, you could use it. And but there you got to be a runner. And I've noticed again this year they're already starting to slim off. So you've got the Crippses. They've got the Crippses and all these guys. They're giants. They're big body guys, but now they're all starting to. Even Franklin, you mentioned him already.
If you can't run, and I mean really run, then
you're in trouble.
You can't play AFL.
You can't play.
And the only people that can are the highly talented players can maybe get away for a little bit. But if you can't run, and I mean seriously run, you no chance of playing at a top level. I don't care how talented you are, or how tall you are, or how quick you are in terms of 100 metres. If you can't run,
you're not there.
And I just came from 2K with the state 18s, and I didn't say it, but if you can't run, you can't.
You're not going to be there.
You're not going to make it.
No.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Now listen, I'm just gonna jump into the Melbourne Demons last year.
Yeah.
Everyone had them picked in the top 4.
Well, I did. They let me down.
They did.
I had just
I think everything. Mate, any ideas why? What's going to happen? Where they're going to go?
I think just more to my point I just said. You have high 20s guys not joining into training to February.
Yep.
You can't compete.
Yep.
Especially the game style that Melbourne like to play. They like to play an outnumber around the contest, which takes. If you've got trying to get the most numbers at every contest, that means you've got to work over that contest, get the most numbers in, and then the next contest you've got to do exactly the same thing. It's a high velocity game style that good in that play. If you've got guys that haven't done pre-seasons, and a lot of those guys were the midfielders, you're in a lot of trouble.
Wow.
And that's what happened. They went a long time through the season deep into a prelim, and then so a lot of those off-season surgeries, which you might have booked in 6 weeks before if you weren't, got held off. And then they probably just thought, well, we'll be right. We'll get up and going through the season, but then more injuries came, and then they're humans. They lose confidence. I think
And that's
if Stephen May and Jake Lever are in the round 1 team for Melbourne this year, I'll start to judge Melbourne. We've given up a lot for those two players in particular, and the highly talented, key position players. If those two guys are in Melbourne's round 1 team, I reckon people can start to judge. Yep. Okay, what have they done? From a great position they were in with a lot of young players, a lot of good draft picks. And then we've given off a lot of first round picks for those two players. If we can get those two guys on the park, I'll probably start to judge Melbourne a bit more seriously.
I think they'll be there roundabouts.
I'm not an excuse maker by any means, but just knowing the pre-season that the guys did and knowing a little bit more, it was pretty obvious early on that it was going to be insurmountable, the amount of injuries they had.
Yeah, okay.
And
does this stem from a coaching? And I'm going to go back a bit because obviously you've had a lot of caretakers, you've had a lot of coaching changes, Paul Roos, and
he was good. Was he?
Yeah. Brucey? Yeah, he was great.
So was he a turnaround for the club?
Paul was a turnaround because the confidence he has in himself sort of started to sweep around around the players.
Yeah.
He came into an environment where we were chronically getting belted all the time, and Paul's a very proud person. He's very confident, sometimes overconfident, but he's a very confident person, and his partner is sort of a meditation mind coach, and she was really good for a lot of the guys. So he was really good. I just think last year was, hopefully an anomaly. If they get their injuries back on track and they sort of stick together, I'm sure they'll be fine. They've still got some... Their age group at Melbourne is incredibly young. Clayton Oliver is 22, Track is 23, so Salmon's 22, 23, Brayshaw the same. So, that midfield and Gorney's still at the peak of his power, and hopefully will be for a couple more years at least. So.
Big bloke from North Melbourne.
Is Bruce still there? He's still there?
He's going okay. It's pretty hard to get Max out of that number 1 role.
Yeah.
But,
I couldn't believe when he left
North.
North.
Backup, wouldn't he? Surely now, because he's had another year. Now he's had a year again with Melbourne.
Yeah, it looks like he's lost a lot of weight from some of the pictures I've seen. So, they're in a good draft position this year. They've got a couple of picks in the top 10. So, I'll as I said, I'll start to judge them once those guys are on the park, Lever and May, because they're very important to their structure.
Yeah,
I think it's fantastic that Nathan Jones, you mentioned him. I just think he's an absolute jet. And because there's a guy that's been through the whole box and dice when they wasn't going well, they were going well, and they're quick to scrutinise, aren't they? He's had a couple of games there where he was, he's getting a little bit older, and but his body, he's head over the ball, knocked around, and
it's the same with Garrett Jr. though. I think sometimes you want them to. They're judged by their previous acts,
absolutely,
and they're judged probably harsher. And Nathan's probably judged with his previous acts, and age is going to catch up to everyone. And that just means his role and the expectations should lower a little bit. He's still contributing to the team, and but sometimes we knock those guys, and then as soon as they're retired, we miss them again.
Exactly.
So
well, it's good that people that do follow the game probably do know what's going on, but some of the commentators probably don't. Backing that up, Jeff. Some of them.
Just on coaches and stuff, as I said before, you've gone through a few. Did you start off your career with Neil?
I started my first year was under Neil Danaher. So I think in terms of interims and coaches, I had 8 in 11 years. So a fair few. Sitting back now, take away the success sort of selfishness. I was over the moon sitting here having 8 different senior coaches because, geez, you get a wide range of experiences from all those guys, and you get a lot of, that's what I'd do, and a lot of, that's what I definitely won't do. And both of them are exactly the same result. You learn stuff from it.
Well, the question is then, with all you've learned, and now, as you say, with running around with the Devils there, is that a passion, coaching?
Maybe in the future. I've been doing a bit of... I do a lot of tier 3 work, and I'm at Kingston at the moment with some people that just maybe struggle with school a little bit, from either behavioural or just stuff. I enjoy doing that. I would love to get involved in coaching. I guess I can be seen maybe as divisive, because I have expectations. I've seen how VFL works, I've seen how the AFL works. Coming down here, though, has been a real big shock to me, I will admit, in terms of the attitudes within sort of the club I was in and in general.
Can it be fixed?
Look, I'm at been at a couple of schools now, and there's no one kicking the balls on the ovals. So,
it's really tough,
scary.
isn't it?
That is scary.
I've seen it's filtered because, as I said again, it's not at the schools, and they're at clubs now, and they're trying to push them at North Hobart or Kingborough or these sort of outer clubs, and
I think with Tassie footy too, there's been a sort of not many people come back and that have been in the AFL in the last 15, 20 years. There's actually very few. Some of the guys in the TSL have experienced AFL but might not have stayed there for very long. Exactly. So I think I've played 140 games. That was, I mean, the total for the rest of the league in the TSL might have been 20 total games between them all.
That's right.
So there has been, lack of access of ideas, and that, as you said, footy moves in space of a year, let alone 15 years.
Yeah. Well, to lose, like you're from the northwest coast, but to lose Burnie,
Yeah.
who were winning grand finals and had Laycock.
Yeah.
And these guys have just come out of Essendon, played up there for a few years, and winning grand finals and being a strong club. And you had the guy went to Collingwood, the forward, Myercheck.
Yeah.
All these good players that still big-bodied and
so what you'd have in the 80s and 90s too, because clubs down here had money then back then, they could get recently
Reece
players
Jones,
to come back
way back, all that, good players.
And unfortunately, recently that's been not the case.
No.
Whether a VFL team helps that, I don't think it will. I think that attitudes just need to change. Unfortunately, you might have been involved for 20, 30 years in footy, but someone that has new ideas, maybe it's time to give them a go. Because that unfortunately our passion sometimes holds us back. And the one thing I know with the young kids, there's not as many of them, but those young kids there's still young kids that love football.
With the women's football, mate, that's going ahead in leaps and bounds. And
Yeah.
Were you coaching?
I was
It was.
I mean, they're going with some good girls down here at the moment with the Tassie, who's just got into North Melbourne, your team. I'm sure they got picked up. There was one or two girls there.
Yeah.
And that's going from strength to strength. So it tells me that the women are, I don't know if the state's getting, well, hopefully the state's getting behind them, but as you said, they've got to make it look like a game that...
the AFLW set up what the VFL should be set up if we want a VFL. So we have around 10 Tasmanian girls on the AFLW list that train here now together in Hobart. I've seen Emma Humphries before. Actually, they're starting Monday. They train here, and then if selected in the AFLW, they'll go over. That's the way I would set it up in a VFL team. I don't think we're at the moment we could sustain a VFL team. No. We could put one out, yes. We will lose regularly by 10 goals. I'd be shocked if we won a game.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what we need to do is that we spend a lot of money. There's two clubs out here that we give a lot of money, North Melbourne and Hawthorn, that both have VFL teams.
Exactly.
They're both shit teams.
Hey, turn it up.
They've been good for Tassie, but no. That's the thing, and that's where we're going with this. And even though we're North Melbourne, Hawthorn, but at the end of the day, I'm a realist. I mean, so the state. Is Tasmania better in your mind for having those sides introducing these players that we get to see, or are we better to still keep working down the track of relocating it? I still reckon it's a relocation, isn't it?
I think, with 18, it'd either have to go to 20 or you'd have to lose a couple of teams for Tassie to go to.
See Gold Coast.
Well, let's be honest though. I look at Greater Western Sydney and my young fella come through and he did the Devils program and all that. Yeah. But when you go out there, and I've been out there, it's so there's nothing. I mean, they're not football.
No,
at all.
It isn't. But the fact is that they ain't going.
No, they're not going to. The AFL.
The AFL don't need the people to go to the game.
I know.
They just need to tune on. So it would need to be a 19th or a relocation.
Relocation,
But the fact is, we've got those AFL teams that. It's a mixture of both. I'm happy for the product to be here so kids can go and watch the footy.
Yeah.
But as long as they're genuine in going, okay, we've got a VFL team. Kangaroos are a great example. They won 4 or 5 games in the VFL last year.
Yep.
They would actually benefit as a VFL team for their AFL players to actually have some of these Tasmanian guys playing for them. Yeah. And all it would be is that you just get picked in the reverse. When I was playing with the Devils in North Melbourne, with us, they'd get sent down on the Thursday. They're playing VFL.
Exactly.
Send Naden Grace over there, or send a Baxter Norton, or send some of these guys from the TSL to get VFL
to get the experience,
Um,
like Taron
yeah.
Thomas did when he went and trained with
Exactly.
North.
He played a
Yeah.
VFL game.
He
Nick
did.
Baker played a VFL game. And they're the only 2 times that it's happened. And North Melbourne have an NGA down here. And Hawthorn have obviously been in Launceston. So whether you could have North and Northwest guys, if they were showing talent, to play some VFL for Box Hill, and vice versa down here in the Kangaroos. But it's at the moment it's just not good enough. That what we're getting back from those 2 clubs to what we give.
Well, I see North Launceston, for instance, say being a strong club because of Hawthorn's influence and all that there. And I don't know, is that coincidence that North Launceston are so strong?
Yeah. And, I mean,
and because somehow they must get a spin-off.
Well, they have a massive zone because AFL has killed off South Launceston, so there's only 2
Well, that's what I
teams
mean. They went, didn't they?
Yes,
South
and they
went.
have the Northwest. But, I mean, the fact is that it's only my opinion, but I've played against guys in the TSL this year that are good enough to play AFL, no doubt. But they need some way of getting access to a high standard by
All
still
the
being
time.
able to stay here.
Otherwise they just...
And I mean, you can look at... I mean, there's 23 Tasmanians currently on an AFL list, which is the lowest it's ever been. And apart from Taron and Chase, who went top 10, probably the best couple of players that we've had since Jack Rewalt, which was 13 years ago, were Jeremy Howe and Aaron Hall, that were actually drafted as mature age recruits.
Yeah, it's good to see him coming back too, mate.
Yeah.
He's running
before.
for...
He's up and about. Aaron Hall? Yeah,
Aaron
he's
Hall,
up and about, which
running
is
with
great.
North Melbourne. Good to see.
Well, mate, just jump off the Tasmanian thing for a minute. Did you have any more on that? Or you're
No. I just it was just a comment. I just wanted to know.
Yeah,
because, we've spoken to guys that have played, excuse me, AFL at top level too, and they're Western Australian. They've been talking about their states and what they did, but I just thought it was important, mate, to go
just on that, mate. You obviously we can see your passion in it and where you want it to go and stuff. Have you thought about going down a career path, maybe in to the board or getting something to do with the?
I'm a bit young, I think, for the board level, but I have a massive passion for young people to follow their dreams, whatever it is. As I said, I deal with a lot of people that at school might now they're passionate about cars, whatever it is, and. I feel very lucky. My passion was footy and I got to do it full time. And as long as we're giving those kids the best opportunity either to do that, or the fact is with football's unique because football opens up avenues not just to be a professional athlete, but if you're playing footy and you're any good at it at senior level, that opens access to being able to get an apprenticeship.
Yep.
To get some of the best lessons you can get are from team sport.
Yep.
I was a 16-year-old. I wasn't listening to anyone.
Yeah.
I was listening to my football coach. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Some of those lessons I'd learned back then really set me up. And working at schools now, the lack of team sport, whether females or boys, is there's other 15, 16 stuff starts getting introduced into your life in terms of drugs, alcohol, stuff like that.
Yep.
Where my footy club back then was really strong on me with that sort of stuff. And I felt that was a really advantage. Kids not having that is not a good thing for society.
Mate, my last question here is: do you have any? And it's not the last question, but have you got any advice for young, talented players that are wanting to make it in AFL? And you've just knocked that right on the head.
Yeah.
That's spot on.
I would say
agree.
it's a pipe dream sometimes to aim for AFL, but I would just aim to be the best team person you can be, and if you are that will open up you avenues to. I know there's guys I played with Gus Norton this year who got an apprenticeship straight out of school and is doing really well from an avenue through football because he's such a committed team type person. It can open up not just from the professional, but can open up all avenues for you.
As long as they're playing sport too, not just footy, but I mean just as participating
Exactly.
and being in some. It doesn't matter what it is, but
No, I'm just going to jump back into your team again, and I've just got 2 questions for you here.
Yep.
Your best teammate and your worst teammate that you've played with.
Okay.
And now the worst,
just
when the
remember-
worst can be like a joker. or
just
somebody who's
remember, it will be on YouTube. It will be there for life.
Well, the best and sort of worst was Lyndon Dunn because he would just destroy your stuff or push you in the ice bath or that sort of stuff. fill your car up with, you know, like beanbag balls.
Oh, really?
That's
Whatever,
true, that's
whatever it
harsh.
was. But he was also the best teammate because he's the type of person that will still message you every week now and just say how you are.
And he's going through what you again. His knee. He's coming back, and he's trying to stay at Collingwood. He's on there, possibly a rookie,
And hence why he's lasted so long. I think he's been in the AFL system for about 15
He
years.
has,
because
yeah.
He's
That's
just
legit.
incredibly big-hearted person, and to be honest, his story from where he came from puts everyone's story into perspective because he had a bad time of it as a kid, got given absolutely nothing, and had every opportunity not to go a different way, and didn't. And as I said, he's one of a kind, but geez, yeah, he was an annoying teammate at the same time. But I think there's when you spend that much time, and sometimes you'd have to hang around for a meeting or whatever. Geez, yeah, some people can get up to some silly stuff. That's for sure.
Excellent. That is awesome. You got anything else, mate? You
No,
want to go on?
I was just saying it must have been fantastic to have guys like back in those days when you were playing. You'd have had Neil Baum. You would have had, as you said, the great Danaher, Neil.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
If it was for anyone that's, I know it's been spoken about and been on every TV program and everything else, but to have a guy like him, how inspirational is he? Apart from what's wrong with him, how inspirational was he as a coach?
He was
as a coach to start with, because he was a great player. People forget that.
Yeah, no, he's
great
just, player. Like Neil and Jim Jim Steins were probably the two people I met through footy where you sort of don't. Yeah, you realise it at the time, but then the stuff that you learn from them is incredible. And Neil's strength is.
Well, no one's.
It's
no one can do with it.
Yeah,
but as I say, watching him as a football again, knee went down. Probably would have been the best Danaher, no doubt about that as a footballer. But
there's a couple of people, and then I was also lucky to have Neil Craig, who just was over there with the England rugby team. And he was just an incredible person as well, and that's why I said I was sort of lucky to get that many coaches because I also had Roosie as well, but some of the experiences you meet from
Peter Road,
Dean Bailey.
Dean Bailey, sorry.
Dean Bailey.
He's gone too.
So Mark Riley, Dean Bailey, Todd Viney, Mark Neal, Neil Craig, Paul Roos and Simon Goodwin.
Yeah, that's a big list, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's I sort of pinch myself now, and as I said, I'm a very scribe everything, so I keep all my training stuff, and I'm a bit OCD and stuff. So I've still got a lot of the stuff that they'd say written down, and I kept all that stuff. And you just look at it and you go, "Geez, you've been quite lucky to experience being around these people."
So and I'm sorry to keep you, mate, but so each coach is so different from each other. They really do differ.
In some smaller than the other, but there's a lot. For instance, Dean Bailey, for instance, when he was at Melbourne, he was actually quite before his time. Now, if I look at how the game's played now, and he was actually ahead of the game. We just didn't have the training standards and training ability to do what he wanted. And then, to be honest, I knew Mark Neal wasn't going to work out after walking out of the first meeting. Because the first thing he did was absolutely yell at us and hadn't even introduced himself. And
really?
Then I walked out of the meeting saying, well, if I'm ever going to be a coach somewhere or leading people, I would.
Well, those days, the days of rant and raving, I mean,
I reckon you probably got 2 or 3 a year, maybe 2 max as a coach these days. Because there's not many kids that grow up at school or at home getting yelled at anymore. It just doesn't happen anymore.
No. Well, you're classed as men, and you got to be spoken to that way. And I rev up now and again, okay. I think, but you've got to have you've got to have that.
You don't need
to.
No, but I meant
as long as you got the
as long as you're not
first.
as long as you're not degrading.
You think like with your brothers and sisters growing up, I could have some of the biggest fights with my brothers growing up, but because you have that relationship there,
you get over it.
Yeah. If you don't have that relationship, if it's a fight with a random bloke down the street, you're probably not going to be mates.
No.
And that was the thing with.
Well, that's one thing I'd like to see with footy. I know money has, it's a massive part of all sport now, but making it so that families can still go. And we were talking about a little drop off with even in AFL, and I'm just wondering. And I know this, you're a player, but I just wonder if they're making it too expensive. for the families. When
Oh,
you've got
yeah,
2 or 3 kids,
yeah.
and you know, let's be honest, they go there
Definitely.
and they sit there and they have a pie and chips and everything else, and you go into the footy these days to watch their stars like Colin and.
Yeah, it's very
And
expensive.
unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
damn hard. And as you said, the other thing is that a lot of people don't remember is you're coming in Melbourne, you've got to get there.
Yeah.
You've got to get in the traffic.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's getting in, whether it's train or whatever. And it's not so easy to get to all the games these days. So consequently, you know, this is where there's a bit of a drop off.
It is.
But it's super important to have your, you know, your sign up for your club and support and all that. But I think they should sometimes look at just cutting it back a little bit, making it easier for
Mate,
the people to get to.
I was going to ask you before about the travelling and stuff, and you said you get homesick and it's hard to do. But what is it like nearly every second weekend having to jump on a plane and go into state and be away for the weekend? That must be horrible.
Depends if
I've
you're.
not been able to do
Oh,
it.
yeah. No, it'd be good, but you'd muck around with your mate, surely.
Depends sometimes
Bit
if your home life's not too good. Sometimes it's good to get out or
Yeah.
or whatnot. But oh look,
Maybe I should start
at first everything's new. Like I was going to WA for the first time or NT, and we played a game in China. We played games in like Townsville.
We'll keep going.
At first it's all you know okay. I normally enjoyed it. Some people absolutely hate it.
Yep.
Some people like the Eagles travel every second week, so we're a bit luckier than them. But
When
Yeah.
Eagles,
As you
Eagles
say, if
supporter over
you're
here,
Max
wouldn't
Gorn, you're 6'8" and you're sitting on a plane, you want a bit of leg room
yeah,
too.
well, Maxie coming back from China actually, he got a small seat, non-exit, and then. Unfortunately, the person next to him there was no one there. But the last person to get on the plane, and no joke, was a Samoan priest that would have been about 200 kilos. So Gorny sat with one knee basically back from China. So that was bad. So, but after that, I think the AFL stepped in and they said everyone gets an exit row. But
yeah. Well, mate, I think that's pretty much all we've got. We've held you. Oh, you've got one more, haven't you? Go on.
I thought you were going to talk about close bets. Tips? No.
I'll butt in.
No.
After 18 overs, Brisbane Heat are 6 for 144 against Hurricane Girls.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
No, well done.
Hurricanes girls are a bit of a bugbear for me, but anyway.
Yeah.
They've only got one or two Tasmanian. I think on average they've got one Tasmanian girl playing now two every week, so they're not going any good, and they're not developing. There's no Tasmanians playing.
No, I agree with that.
So
I do.
I think there needs to be a quota there and play more Tasmanians.
It'd be different if they stayed, wouldn't it? If they came into the state, like I know with with a couple of the guys, players they've got down over the years with the Hurricanes and that, like Rose and all these guys. They live here. They're down here. So, and they've made Tassie or Hobart or up north, whatever part of their home, and I reckon that's acceptable. But I agree with you. I totally agree that when they come in, and to me, I'm sorry, but grab the money, get paid, and get out again.
Right away.
We've got to have more Tasmanians.
We have, and it's important for our sport. Otherwise, exactly what you said, Colin's going to happen. We won't.
Colin's mum wants to tell Colin he's got to say happy birthday to the very special girl that comes on his way.
Yes, well,
Look
come
into
on
the
there.
camera.
Yeah, do
She
have
said,
to
make
wish.
sure he says happy birthday.
You want to go around, Alan? You want to sit next to him? Go on.
That's all
It's his birthday today, so.
You'll regret it if you don't.
No, I know.
Come in
Just
there.
go right round the camera.
There you go.
This is one of Colin's biggest fans here, guys. So, hey,
That's it. Come on, sweetie.
I got the present even though it was hot.
yeah, you've done well.
Yeah.
You've done extremely well.
Sweetheart, so we can see your face. There we go.
Happy
There we
birthday
go.
to you.
Happy
birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Heidi.
Wow.
Happy birthday to you.
Hip, hip.
Hooray!
Hooray.
Well done, sweetie.
Will you say hi?
That's okay.
Friday, frothy, and then some.
That's it.
Right.
Look,
We are.
you're right,
Thank
mate.
you for doing that. That is awesome. Thank
Well,
you.
look, we'll let
Did you want to
Colin
come back a
go.
bit later after dinner and maybe do another live?
Yes,
tips
we
and
will.
stuff?
Yeah,
We'll come back.
we've got the horse race and tips, mate, and we've got a few other little things to cover,
we can do
but
that.
we'll do that later on. But look, we appreciate you coming in, and we're honoured for you to come in. So it's good to get a guy that's just come out of the game, literally. I think I mean, You've been down here now 2 years with North, haven't you?
About 18
Two-
months.
Are you
18
still,
months.
playing?
No,
No,
he
I
was.
don't think
You
so.
done?
Yeah, I think I'm done.
He's done.
Don't think so.
Yeah.
But and did well
Could
too.
you, though?
With it.
Do you think you could?
In the TCL, I reckon I could play for the next 5 years if I wanted to.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
and I think there will be a bit more priorities. I won't close the. I'm not retired, but
Yeah.
I'm not playing at the moment.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Nice.
Life goes on,
I
doesn't
can
it? I
see you
mentioned.
coaching. I can see
Yeah.
you,
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I can too. You can make a
Definitely.
difference
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Difference in sport, but again, it's. So we've had quite a few Melbourne players, but I'm absolutely ripped out Colin. Yeah, we've had
Connections with
Alan
sport,
Johnson.
getting the kids
Who else do we have?
in
We had-
schools.
That's it.
That's it. For
Alan
Melbourne.
Johnson.
No, Tony Martin. Tony Martin played there.
Yeah, and Roger Puddlesack.
He was at
He's
North Melbourne, and
So it's got
now,
Melbourne in it.
Colin. So
Yeah, it does.
so we're wrapped to have you, mate. And,
Work.
and look, all the best in
Murphy's next
life.
week.
Hawthorn players.
Do you want to quickly just run through this? Do you want to quickly just do
No,
it?
we can
Just
come back and
just
do
do it.
Darren
Just
Pritchard.
Just do it. Do you mind if he
So-
quickly does his tips, Colin? You can.
Depends if they're good ones.
Well, here we go.
No.
Come on, let's go.
If
Colin Garland and the
we're going
tips.
to do this, then we have to do the intro.
We'll hurry up then.
Okay.
Here we go.
Come on.
You're on, Blaney.
Okay, well, look, we just come off another.
Pressure.
No pressure.
Only had one bet last week, but we got a 60 through, mate.
Yeah.
That was a good bet. I didn't see the Melbourne pundits pick that. I might get a gig over there. Anyway, we're not at Flemington or any of the main tracks tomorrow. We're in,
What's the account looking like, Len?
yeah, we'll talk about that later. Kembla Grange in Sydney, Ballarat, Colin,
Yes.
up in Melbourne, and at Bris Vegas up at Doomben, mate. But
Do you follow any of the horses?
I've never placed a bet on a horse in my life, but
Don't start.
I'm about to
Yeah.
start.
No, not on Cleve's tips.
well,
Ready to go empty the
it's
bank.
a little bit like Nick's Maldi, but
want to do it with
put
these
your
two.
house on it, sell everything,
Here we go.
because these are winners. Race Kembla Grange, this is now in Sydney. We'll quickly duck through these. Race 3, horse 7, California Longbow.
Nice.
He went on him the other week, mate. We'll double up. He'll do well.
Beautiful.
5 on the tape, 4 fixed. Race 4, horse 11, Gen Rules. There's one for Leah.
Yeah,
Good name there, mate.
Yeah.
$5 on the tape. You could get 14 fixed now, but that'll come right in any rate on Saturday. So get down your local there if you want to have a look at them. Have a look if it's raining or whatnot. Melbourne's a little bit like down here in Tassie, isn't it? Race 5, horse 3, Gresham. It's got the great Huey Bowman on that. I reckon I'd be $5 fixed you get on him. Race 6, horse 5. Geez, this is out at the moment, mate. $23.
Who?
Looks like Elvis. Good horse.
Oh, looks like Elvis.
Yeah, $7 for a
one
fixed.
before.
I'll be putting
That's a good bet.
putting a sneaky 5 on
That's
him
probably
somewhere,
the
even for a
best one.
place.
It's one of the horses that Glenn actually wins. So $23.
Don't worry about that.
that's smart.
Thinking about taking over the Commonwealth Bank next week. Race 8, horse 9, Trumbull, $5.20 on the tote. Straight up to Ballarat. Race 3, horse 3, Credence, $4.20 fixed.
Credence Clearwater.
Race 7, horse 1, Bravo Tango, $5
Oh no.
fixed.
Delta Charlie.
And I won't change my bet this time, Jeff, but race 8, horse 5, Dr. Drill, $3.40.
He's
I
back.
won't. I'm not going to change my bet. I lost. Anyway, we don't.
Yeah, we
don't
know
change
the
your bet,
story.
viewers. Don't ever do that.
We know the story.
Race 9, horse 11, Lil Contra, $2.70 fixed. Straight to Doom Barn. Race 2, horse 1,
What?
Excuse me.
Gun Tanties, $5.20 to Tate. Race 6,
So
horse
I'm
7,
feeling right now.
Dream Master. That's what we did. I could dream if I was half as good as this girl ever. $3.50 fixed. Race 8, horse 4, Senior Fox, $4.10 on the tote.
Senora.
And the last one, race 9, horse 7, Taxi, $4.40 fixed. That is Cleve's tips.
Bet
That's good.
Always
irresponsibly.
bet irresponsibly.
Yes, yes.
And, no, quite seriously.
And that was Cleve's tips.
Guys in the audience, just a quick round of applause for
Yay.
Colin for coming in this evening, mate. We're absolutely pleased to have you, mate. So, thank you so much.
Thanks, Shirley.
Thank you, Shirley. Really appreciate it. And sorry about the hard seat.
And look, just quickly, any time, mate, you want to come back into the bar and tell us how things are going, and with your after football or what you're doing and that, we'd appreciate that. Or that'd be
I'll
great.
come preview the AFL season.
No worries, mate.
That'd be
Yeah.
real. Oh, how could
That
you
would be
really?
great.
Could you really?
We'd love that.
Maybe.
Book it
Yeah.
in.
You'll
Well,
come with you.
We'll buy.
I'll
We'll
get
buy you
some more
some chocolates.
celebrations,
We'll buy you
you
some
know.
chocolates.
That's all right, we'll do that.
Colin, thank
Thanks very
you
much.
so
I
much.
appreciate
mate.
it. You're a gentleman and a scholar for coming in, and
Scholar.
we are absolutely rapt to have you, mate.
Really enjoyed that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us, Colin. Thanks for joining us. For sponsor
Well
Corey's
done to
Garden and
Corey.
Landscaping.
Well done to Al behind the, doing all the technical stuff here.
Merv
and,
Hughes
Leah,
next week.
Makeup artist.
Wow.
We've got a lot of work to do, Leah, with me, but you're doing a great job there.
Have a good weekend.
Well done.
Goodbye, everyone.
See ya.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin.
Cheers.
Cheers.